Ciao, I'm Mario, a Swiss car guy on YouTube, and today I am reviewing the Grom Vline VL2 for 5th generation Lexus infotainment systems. That's a bit of a mouthful. In this case, in my 2008 Lexus LS600H. The Vline 2 is available for a plethora of different car models by Lexus, Toyota, Acura, Nissan, Infiniti and Volvo. The way it integrates in the car will vary between the different car makes and models, but the general functionality should be the same. Before we get started, I need to make it clear that this is not a sponsored review. I bought the unit with my own money, lots of it. I will try to be as objective as possible and show you the good, the bad and the ugly. But since I did buy the device and have used it extensively, I might be somewhat biased towards it. But first, what is a Grom Vline VL2? Well, it's an Android computer that can be connected to and integrates into the car's original infotainment system, which gives the car a few new features it would not have had from the factory. It's basically like having an Android tablet neatly and more or less seamlessly integrated into the car's original infotainment system that can be used through the car's existing controls, being touchscreens like in my case, or with the stupid touchpad controller used in later Lexus models. And for those people unfamiliar with Android, it's like an iPad that allows you to connect to the internet, install and use apps like Google Maps, Waze, Spotify or even YouTube. Basically any app that can be used on a tablet or a smartphone using the Android operating system can therefore run on your old car's screen. Now you might ask, what is the advantage of installing a Grom Vline 2 compared to just sticking a tablet onto the windscreen or the dash? Well, tidiness. There are no cables dangling around and obviously no tablet stuck somewhere on the dashboard or windscreen. Not only does it look tidier, it is also stealthy, making it less likely for junkies to break your window in order to steal the tablet. It also means you don't have to hide it every time you park your car somewhere in public to avoid possible break-ins. It interfaces digitally with the rest of the infotainment. This means you get pretty much perfect sound quality, as there is no additional compression or digital to analog conversion in the signal path. It also uses the car's sound system, so you can expect the same sound quality as you would get on the car's stock CD player. It actually adds new features. My 2008 LS does have Bluetooth connectivity for calls, but if I want to stream music from my phone, I cannot do it, and an external tablet wouldn't be much help either, as that would have to be connected somehow to the car's sound system as well. Since the Vline is wired directly into the infotainment system, it can serve as a receiver for Bluetooth music streams from my smartphone and play them through the car's sound system. But not only that, apparently the Vline 2 also supports wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. I say apparently because I don't have an Apple device to try out CarPlay, and in this car I never feel the need to use Android Auto with my Samsung smartphone, and I will explain why later on. This is probably the longest term review of the Grom Vline VL2 that you will find on the internet. I bought the Vline 4.5 years ago in September of 2018. I ordered it before I even took delivery of the car and installed it within 1 week of owning the car. So you can say I'm quite experienced with the device. But I can tell you that me owning this unit for so long is not necessarily a good thing, and more on that later on. I have mentioned multiple times that the Vline 2 integrates with the car's infotainment system. But what does it mean? The Vline is basically a metal box that needs to be connected to the car's stereo by using a host of supplied cables. I will not go into the details of the installation, as Grom themselves have pretty useful videos on how to install the Vline in a variety of car models. What I can tell you is that the 5th generation LS requires temporarily removing the DVD changer for the install. The DVD changer is still fully functional. This in turn requires the removal of the ashtray, which itself requires the removal of the center console trim. It's not a difficult job, as I managed to do it myself, and all the required cables are supplied. There is no need to splice any wires. It's literally just plug and play with some disassembly required. Then again, I am quite at home with disassembling car interiors, as I have installed some sort of stereo upgrade into every car I have ever owned. Usually it's recommended to install the V-Line unit into the glove box, but personally I don't like that idea, as the cables would flex every time you open and close the glove box. So instead I installed it into the compartment underneath the armrest in the center console. Since my car has the video in for the rear seat entertainment there, I just popped out the socket and routed the cables for the V-Line through that opening. I could have installed it somewhere behind the dash, or possibly even inside the center tunnel, instead of giving up one of the most useful storage compartments of the car. However, I wouldn't recommend that. For one, you can't access the USB ports or the microSD slot on the unit if it's hidden inside the dashboard. Yes, you can use extension cables for USB and just not use the SD card. But sometimes you need physical access to the unit, as it will misbehave and need to be manually restarted by disconnecting it from power. It doesn't happen often, maybe once a month, but in that case you want a way of restarting the unit, or you will be stuck listening to CD like it's 1999 until the unit decides to work properly again. To make my life easier, I even wired a switch into the circuit which cuts power to the unit. As to how the unit misbehaves, I will talk about that later on in the video. This might become quite a long video. Also, if at one point a V-Line 3 is released, I might be able to just swap the main unit without having to disassemble the center console again, assuming the connectors stay the same. By the way, the unit comes with a microphone to be used for the Google Assistant feature. Since phone calls continue to use the car's factory Bluetooth and microphone, the additional mic is just for voice control, which works about just as badly as in any other Google Assistant enabled device. I installed the microphone in the ashtray, as it was convenient, and due to its shape and size I never used the ashtray for anything anyway. The V-Line also has its own GPS receiver. I installed it on top of the touchscreen by reaching in from behind, so I installed it above the screen inside the dash. The top of the dash is not metal and will therefore not block the GPS signal. Also, on cars with infrared reflecting windscreens like the LS, there usually is an untreated area right in the center of the windshield to allow external GPS units to receive some signal. Otherwise, that infrared reflecting coating would greatly reduce the GPS signal. Once the unit is connected and working, it will show up as a second DVD changer and can be selected by pressing the Disc Aux button. Pressing the button will cycle between the factory DVD changer, the V-Line and the aux port. And if the V-Line is selected, instead of the familiar DVD selection screen, we will see something very different. What we see is basically what we would see on an Android tablet. We have apps, we have information such as time, or in my case speed, and we have the classic app drawer with all the apps that are installed. That said, this is not the original interface that comes up with the V-Line. You see, on Android you can customize the appearance of the user interface by installing so-called launchers. Launchers basically are the user interface. So if you don't like the one you have, you can just download a different one from the Play Store and completely change the way everything on your screen looks. The one I'm using here is called Car Launcher Free. And I like it because it looks okay and has a feature that I find particularly useful. When you're listening to music and the new track is played, it will overlay the song info for a few seconds. So you immediately know if this is a song you want to listen to or not and can skip it right away. I should probably buy the Pro version of this launcher since I like it so much and have been using it right since I have the car. So the V-Line basically turns the screen of your infotainment into an Android tablet. I probably don't have to explain how a touchscreen works. However, I have to point out that my 5th generation Lexus LS doesn't have a modern capacitive touchscreen that works by registering the electrical potential coming from your fingers. No. The Lexus still uses one of the old style resistive touchscreens that works by registering force. so you cannot just caress it like on a modern smartphone, you need to press quite firmly. This makes swiping and also scrolling a bit of a chore because you have to press quite hard. In exchange, it works with gloves. Also, resistive touchscreens are incapable of multi-touch, so there is no pinch zooming on Google Maps, it's only one finger at a time. And speaking of the screen, my Lexus is 15 years old. Therefore, the screen, besides being non-capacitive, also isn't the most high resolution one. It has a resolution of 800 by 480, which is fine for its size, it's 8 inches, but certain apps can look a bit cramped as they are designed for modern devices with twice or more the resolution. Of course, the car's physical controls for the stereo still work. The volume is controlled independently of the V-line anyway, but the previous and next track can be selected from the steering wheel, the radio itself, or the controls in the rear seat armrest, unless you have disabled them. The backup camera and the Bluetooth hands-free phone function still work just as before, as they continue to use the car's existing implementation. Now, looking at me using the device, you might have noticed it's not the fastest responding computer you have ever seen. There is a bit of delay when I open an app or switch between apps. And the reason is very simple. This thing is ancient. When I bought it in 2018, the V-Line 2 had just been released and replaced the original V-Line, and even back then, this was by no means a high-end device. It uses a Rockchip RK3066 chipset, which is a 2-core ARM CPU with 2 GB of RAM and 16 GB of internal storage that originally came out in 2012. Just for comparison, today you can buy a little Android-based TV media player on Aliexpress that uses a much newer and about 4 times as powerful RK3318 chipset for about $30 delivered. The V-Line 2 costs $679. Therefore, I find it slightly outrageous that Grom still charges $679 for the V-Line 2. I mean, the way it stealthily integrates with the car is great, but pricing is completely mad. I recently bought an entire aftermarket radio for my Trans Am with a 7-inch capacitive touchscreen, an 8-core processor, 4 GB of RAM, 64 GB of internal storage for $160 delivered. It even has a 4G modem and built-in DSP. And the problem is not just that it's expensive. Its age is a problem in itself. You see, with Android it's not like Windows or Linux where you will receive updates for years and years and basically can install a current version of the operating system on any computer that still more or less runs. No, for every new Android version, all the drivers need to be reprogrammed so that the device can actually work. Back in 2018, when I bought the V-Line 2, it ran Android 5 and Grom had promised an update to Android 7. That update never came. To Grom's credit, they instead updated the unit to Android 8.1, which is newer and therefore better. However, since that update was so major, they were not comfortable with distributing it over the air and instead made me buy a micro SD card with the update on it for $15. An additional $16.99 in shipping later, and I had my update to Android 8.1. And that was a good thing, because by 2023, many apps have stopped supporting Android 7. So if the V-Line was stuck using Android 7, new versions of, for example, Google Maps or YouTube would not run on the device. In fact, you might notice that I am filming the screen instead of just using a screen recorder app, which would lead to better quality capture. Oh, I tried several, but none of them would work and record the screen content. The reason? It looks like no screen recorder app supports Android 8.1. And with time progressing, this will be more and more of a problem. Android 8.1 came out in 2016. The current Android version is 13, with version 14 due sometimes this year. So it's only a matter of time until fewer and fewer apps support 8.1. And when that is the case, it's very unlikely Grom will be able to provide a software update to a newer version, because for that they would need new chipset drivers by the Chinese chipset manufacturer, who most likely has no intention of supporting their low-end chipset from 10 years ago. And the incompatibility with newer apps isn't the only problem with the unit being out of date. It's a security issue as well. On my completely up-to-date unit, the last security patch was from January 2019, which isn't even the most recent security patch for Android 8.1. So, 4 years since the last patch, which means the device might be vulnerable to hacks and malware. In my case, that would not be terrible, since I have no email or messaging apps installed through which malware could enter the device. And I obviously don't run e-banking apps on the V-Line. However, it is connected to the internet and I have Google accounts active on the device, which might get compromised. Personally, I'm still happy with the V-Line 2, as I have had over 4 years of good use out of the product and it was totally worth it. But if you're buying today, you're buying some very obsolete tech at a steep premium that will get more and more obsolete over time. And that is not okay. Grom should put out a new version with much better and more recent hardware. They surely charge enough money for it. I've mentioned before that I don't use Android Auto on the unit. And the reason is that I don't see the need for it. I have all the apps that I want to use installed directly on the V-Line and can use them from there. Also, by using the apps directly from the V-Line, I have no limitations on what I can and cannot use. You see, Android Auto, and I'm sure Apple CarPlay does this as well, will only allow certain apps it deems to be safe and that won't distract you while driving. While this is commendable, I still want to decide myself what apps I can and cannot use, thank you very much. And yes, I watch YouTube while I drive, or rather I listen to YouTube. I like to listen to like Steve Late or Louis Rossmann or other talking style content that does not require me to look at the screen. And if I have passengers in the car, they might want to watch a video once they're fed up talking with me. The V-Line also does not require any bypass to have video while in motion. On DVDs, the car will block the screen while you're driving to avoid distracting the driver. The V-Line is not affected by this and will happily show you all the videos you can watch. Also, installing directly on the V-Line allows me to use apps that are not certified or allowed for Android Auto, such as YouTube Revanced, which is basically an alternative version of YouTube with built-in ad and sponsor block. I don't want to waste mobile data by loading ads or being told about Squarespace, NordVPN or Clash of Clans. Now you might wonder how the V-Line accesses the internet. It does not have a built-in modem where you could just insert a SIM card and go. Instead, it just uses Wi-Fi and connects to the mobile hotspot on my smartphone. This would usually mean that I would have to turn on the mobile hotspot on my smartphone whenever I get into the car. Since that is way too impractical, I installed an app called Macrodroid on my smartphone that automatically turns on the mobile hotspot whenever the smartphone connects to the car's Bluetooth. That way, within a couple of seconds of starting the car, the V-Line is connected to the internet. If it's a fresh start, it will take the V-Line 1 to 2 minutes to boot up anyway. This is usually when I haven't used the car for more than 24 hours. At least I think it's 1 to 2 minutes, but I will time it now. Otherwise, the V-Line will go into a sleep mode and be available as soon as you start the car. This function, however, seems a bit flaky. Sometimes I just quickly pop into the grocery store for 15 minutes and when I'm back in the car, the V-Line does a complete startup. In other cases, it just wakes up instantaneously. Also, since the latest firmware update, I've had the issue that when the V-Line wakes up from sleep, it wouldn't connect to my phone's hotspot. Going into the Wi-Fi settings reveals the reason. The settings app is basically hanging and you have to wait for it to crash before it restarts itself and then just works. But again, this doesn't happen every time, it's kind of random and it might get fixed with a future firmware update. I am confident that Grom will fix this in the next update, as they have been constantly releasing updates that introduce new functionalities and sometimes new bugs. For example, in one of my previous videos I complained that when I'm on a phone call, the phone screen in the infotainment locks out the V-line, and that as long as I am on the phone, I cannot use the V-line at all. This behavior was changed in a recent update. Now the call starts, and then after a few seconds you get back to the V-line screen and can interact with it normally and, for example, see your Google Maps navigation. But some updates also introduced problems. Do you remember how in the beginning of the video I mentioned that the digital connection was an advantage for sound quality? Well, after one update, all the sound from the V-line suddenly was distorted. It was subtle, but clearly audible, and really annoyed the hell out of me. I even made recordings and sent them to the support so that they could figure out what was going on. I tried several settings and firmware versions, but nothing helped. We arrived at the point where they sent me an RMA form to have my unit replaced under warranty. Right as I was about to send the unit back, they told me to wait and that they had found a little issue in the firmware. The next update fixed the problems. Hooray! And the update right after reintroduced the same problem. A little exchange with the customer support later and the fixed firmware was released that solved the problem for good. At least they have quite a competent customer service. Making this video, I was surprised to find that between November 2019 and March 2020, I have exchanged over 30 emails with them on various issues, and most of them are solved. The audio distortion, exFAT formatted SD cards and flash drives could not be recognized, GPS signal could never be acquired after a wake up from sleep. Man, I have done some beta testing here. I think I might write to them about the Wi-Fi issue, as it seems they do listen to complaints and try to fix the problems. Oh, and as for the reason why I installed the switch to cut power to the V-line, sometimes the screen just stays black. Or in the past, the touchscreen would be non-responsive. I have to say I haven't had that issue for a very long time, at least half a year. In those cases, I have found the best solution is to shut the V-line off, turn off the car, turn the V-line on, and then start the car. I reckon that must be some sort of communication breakdown between the V-line and the car. It used to happen more frequently, but in the past few months it has happened about, once or twice. Not the end of the world, but still slightly annoying. I guess that's what you get when you go with an aftermarket solution. The integration will never be as perfect as an OEM solution, even though OEM solutions are hardly perfect either. Adam, a viewer of the channel, asked if the V-line could output video to the rear seat entertainment. It cannot do it from the factory. And I wondered if I could convert the V-line's HDMI out into a composite signal and then feed it into the external input for the rear seat entertainment. So I bought a converter and tried it out. It doesn't work. The converter works, but my HDMI out does not output anything at all. It would have been cool to have the output from the V-line on the rear screen as well as the front screen, but I guess that either the HDMI out is not programmed to do anything, or that my HDMI out is broken. So, here we are at the end of this very long and hopefully informative video. Do I regret getting the V-line too? Not at all. I love how this little box brought my car bang up to date in terms of infotainment, and it's one of the reasons why I like driving this car so much. Would I buy the Grom Vline VL2 again? In 2023, I would not. The hardware is just too old, slow, and the software is just too obsolete and insecure, especially at a $600 price tag. If it was $200, why not? But for $600 or more, there are other solutions nowadays that completely replace the OEM screen with a similar sized or even a much larger one. I don't know how well those very Chinese solutions work, how nice they look, how easy they are to install, and how well they integrate with the car, but at least they use more modern hardware and much newer Android versions for the same or even less money. That should cover it. Have I forgotten something? Is there anything else you want to know about the Grom Vline VL2 and how it integrates with my 2008 Lexus LS600H? Please comment down below. Otherwise, this is the end of the video. If you like this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing to my channel so you don't miss on future thrilling videos such as this one. Please follow me on Instagram at SwissCarGuyMario if you want to see some more frequent content than I post here on YouTube. And that's it. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Bye.